Welcome to the Exploring the Vintage NFT podcast with Zero G. I'm really excited to have with me today one of the Rare Pepe OGs, scientists, and creators, Joe Looney. Thanks for joining me today, Joe.
Sure, good to be here.
Man, there's so much to talk about, but I guess before we get into anything with your creations and your innovations, let's talk about your beginnings. So how did you hear about crypto, and what got you intrigued enough to actually take a look and actually buy some?
I think my first experience or introduction to crypto was it was a Twitter handle that I started following probably in like late 2011, early 2012, that just tweeted a Bitcoin price. And I had no idea what Bitcoin was, but I just thought it was funny. It's a funny Twitter account to follow. And I remember early 2013 seeing that ticker price going up and going $10, $20, $30. And so I finally decided to take a look into it and see what was going on, kind of like early 2013. And then I just kind of fell down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and have been hooked ever since.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so that's pretty early. Did you at the time, did you get into any of the early altcoins too, or did you just stick to Bitcoin?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's kind of the cycle that most people do. They find Bitcoin, and then they find all the shit coins afterwards, and then come back to Bitcoin eventually. But yeah, no, I was a big believer in BitShares early on. That was definitely a project that I was like very interested in. And then I think Counterparty actually was how I kind of came back to Bitcoin. I remember when Counterparty launched early 2014. And then that I just kind of stuck with that. And I'm still with it. And I mean, that's the platform Rare Pepes are built on, and all the old vintage Bitcoin NFTs. So yeah, I think it was just good timing, I guess, and I found my way to that, and it's been something I've been interested in, kind of hooked ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know I got early on I got Bitcoin, and then I got a couple of the early shit coins, and it's I didn't keep up with like Bitcoin development enough to actually know about Counterparty. So I missed the whole train on the early Counterparty and NFT like whole infrastructure and whatnot. So that's something I kind of regret. But yeah, it's interesting, like you said, how many, for the tremendous amount of shit coins that have come and gone. I mean, really, there's only a couple that have like held even a tiny amount of value long term. So, ETH and BTC have definitely been champs in that regard. Yeah, one of the things I thought would have taken off more early on too was some of the infrastructure coins too. We had things like storage coins and Namecoin for decentralized DNS. But anyway, it's kind of an aside. So you heard about Counterparty in 2014 as that was coming out. How did you hear about that?
Well, I heard about it the place you would hear any kind of new information about Bitcoin at that time, which is Bitcoin Talk forums. So
oh yeah.
Yeah, so I think I happened to see the announce post, and I remember being kind of intrigued with the Bitcoin burn to get to create XCP at launch. So I guess that's probably what caught my eye with it. And then yeah, no, I kind of joined the early Slack, Counterparty Slack. That was kind of the big, that was pre Discord. It was kind of all the crypto communities used Slack at one time. And then yeah, just kind of been part of that community ever since.
Yeah, so and before we jump into the rest of the counterparty stuff and in your creations, so you obviously had a little bit of talent with the on the art side. When did you start dabbling in art and digital media?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't I wouldn't call myself a talented artist by any means. But yeah, I mean, I grew up in internet culture. I've
Mhm.
like it's been something that I've always been interested in from the days of like dial-up internet and Usenet news groups and kind of like the start of the World Wide Web, and I kind of grew up with all of that. So um I've been making memes and and funny images on the computer for as long as I can remember. Um, but yeah, I think it's kind of one of the things with crypto art as kind of an art movement and being like so kind of deep in internet culture. It's what I love about it is that it's really accessible to anybody that wants to become involved and create art and stuff like that. You don't have to be a I guess maybe a classically trained artist. You can just be a a good meme creator or whatever you want to do. So yeah, I'd say that's probably the angle where I came at it from.
Yeah, that's a great point because in the internet slash meme culture, you know, um, I mean, it's almost that the some of the jankiness has been kind of incorporated as kind of the standard. But yeah, you don't have to be like the most amazing artist to have a really big impact. It's really just about kind of the what you're trying to convey. So that's definitely cool.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so definitely fun stuff. Um, and some of the early, at least for, I didn't hang out on the BBS message boards other than a couple times, but the first time I really saw like the memeing with photos, kind of similar to what ended up being like Rare Pepes, would be like something awful like their Photoshop Fridays. Um, and that's where I saw a lot of that, just the memeing with Photoshop really taking off. So it's definitely takes you back.
Yeah, I mean stuff like that. I remember E-Bombs World was
Yeah.
another big one with kind of user submitted content, and then Reddit obviously, and
Mhm.
Tumblr, and just like kind of all the like early just like internet communities that kind of sprung up around these different websites and stuff. So I think it was certainly being involved with the internet in that way. It was very natural, like with crypto and stuff, for me to kind of join that. Is it was a very similar like internet subculture feel to it. Um, so yeah, it's definitely a kind of a been a lifelong process through waiting and exploring through the internet and finding my way here to talking to you about rare pepes.
What's kind of ironic though is early on, you just consume and you have fun with a lot of these memes and you, like at least back I didn't like really think of them like lasting it like for any length of time or still being appreciated. So it's kind of ironic to like you said to have us here talking about it, years and years after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's a lot of just like in culture anyway. I mean, like all the most popular like things right now, and like the most popular movies right now are like the Marvel movies, right? And that's all from like the probably like my generation, the generation that kind of grew up with the internet and grew up with like comic books and watching cartoons, and the more like that was it's kind of I think I see it very similar kind of arc on the internet too. It's like the media we consume and stuff, whether it's um, kind of fed to us in a like high production value way, or it's like it's just kind of this culture that's evolved over time, like in real life and on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, I think the internet culture that was created organically is a lot more interesting than what we now have with a lot of the corporatized versions of popular media and culture too. Like Disney and all of these companies have bought out all of those old pop culture IPs to now it's all corporatized. So I don't know, definitely interesting. So so you heard about Counterparty in 2014. So when did you like make the jump and make your first asset, and what were you trying to do there?
I think, I mean, my very first assets that I created were really just messing around with the platform.
Mhm.
I think, let's see, I think the very first one I made, it was either Seed or Thing, was like a really early one. What's kind of funny is, when the when Counter Wallet, so Counterparty released in, I think it was January 2014, but Counter Wallet didn't come out until March. So there was almost 2 month lag between Counterparty, like starting, like the Genesis block of Counterparty starting on Bitcoin, and like a nice user interface to create assets. So anything created in that first 2 month window, really would have been like power users using command line stuff to interact with, Counterparty. So at the time, and I mean, even still to some extent, I'm not like the most comfortable person in command line. I mean, I can certainly do it, but I generally wait until a nice UI comes out. So yeah, I think those early assets were just experimenting with coming up with funny vanity plates. And I mean, the thing with Counterparty is like when you create an asset, you get this kind of nice like vanity license plate style name, that nobody else can have once you register it. So trying to think of all the things you can early on that, not necessarily might have value, but just something that you could use and play around with. So I'd say a lot of the early assets were that. I think I'd say I didn't really create an asset with anything in mind for it, probably until like the summer of 2014.
Okay, cool. Oh, I didn't know that early on you had to use CLI in order to interact with that. So that's good to know. And so you got you created a few early assets. So when did you hear? I know it's a ways down the road. So did you create other art or start contributing to the Counterparty community prior to Rare Pepes?
Yeah, I would say there was a lot of overlap in the Counterparty community and listeners of the podcast Let's Talk Bitcoin.
Mhm.
Kind of at the time, Let's Talk Bitcoin was like the main Bitcoin podcast, 2013, 2014. Um, so that was one of the kind of first podcasts I started listening to once I like really got into Bitcoin in 2013. And Adam, who was the host, was very interested in Counterparty too. So I think, it was naturally was a lot of overlap there. Not a not a very large community by any means. So it's the same people listening to the podcast that are kind of playing around with Counterparty. So I think I probably started building stuff, I'd say right away. I mean, within my skill set, and then as my like knowledge of how Counterparty and Bitcoin worked, and um, grew, and then I was able to kind of create more things. But I built my first wallet that I built was actually early 2015. Um, and it was a wallet, to kind of use with Let's Talk Bitcoin, which is, and kind of funny. It was a Chrome extension, and it had like you were able to interact with the Let's Talk Bitcoin website with it, so kind of like a MetaMask. So it was a very early, kind of version of that, but um, yeah, I've been building wallets at least for the last 7 years, I'd say, for Counterparty, and even before that, websites that kind of pulled data from APIs that are available to kind of look up token balances and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I've been involved pretty. I'd say crypto really kind of brought my love of coding and building applications and stuff back.
Mhm.
It's not something I went to college for mechanical engineering and worked as a mechanical engineer for the last 15 years up until a couple weeks ago. So, but my kind of love and passion has always been kind of writing code and building websites and stuff like that. It's something I did all. I was the kid in high school that like I built the website for the company my mom worked for. I was kind of like that kid that's good with the computer and can make websites and stuff. So I mean, at the time, there wasn't like it was there weren't all these big companies that would build this stuff for you. So people would yeah hire one of their employees' smart children that knew how to build all that stuff. So so that was me. And then I kind of took a break from it and focused on more the solid in real life mechanical systems and things, and worked as an engineer that way. But I'd say crypto really brought me back to being a software developer. So I think that's why counterparty really lent itself to a lot of those strengths. So it was something that I really enjoyed kind of building around and building tools for.
That's awesome. So so it sounds like you self-taught on HTML early on. Were you self-taught the rest of your coding tool set too?
Yep.
Oh, very rad. So I know I learned HTML young too, and I picked up that book on the C programming language by Kern Ritchie when I was young too, and I never actually really did anything with it other than some Hello World stuff. So, way more impressive the stuff that you've done actually contributed to the evolution of the crypto ecosystem. So very rad. So you started tinkering around with the wallets early on, and kind of playing around with the counterparty ecosystem there. What was your first like actual like art that you created on the platform? Do you remember?
I mean, it's probably the first Rare Pepe that I made. I mean, because at the
Okay.
time, I mean, early counterparty, I mean, it wasn't really art and tokens wasn't really a thing. It
Mhm.
was, people thought of tokens much more as something you used, not something you collected. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the early applications were like people like having ideas to use tokens as like tickets or coupons or something like that, something that had some sort of function. And then that was why what really drew me to Rare Pepes was because it kind of like was that light bulb moment for me, in that these tokens don't need to necessarily have a function or a use. You could just collect them for the sake of collecting. So yeah, I would say probably my first like art would have been Pepe Party, which was the first Rare Pepe that I made. But I was certainly exposed to like Spells of Genesis cards and stuff in 2015. And to be honest, it wasn't as an application of using tokens as kind of these like digital trading cards, like didn't really speak to me. I like didn't really have much of an interest in collecting them or anything. I was kind of still in the mode of these tokens have to do something. And so I'd say that probably the summer of 2015, I I really like had I don't know that I had an epiphany, but I kind of just accepted that like Spells of Genesis cards, I think Forces of Will cards were just about to come out, or I'd read something about them, and this application of these like trading cards and on as tokens. I think I accepted that, yeah, that's a legitimate use case. So but it wasn't until Rare Pepes and Mike dropping the Nakamoto card in September of 2016 that I really fully grasped the utility, like the use case of using these as like a canvas, and anyone can create any kind of art and have that like the art represent the token, and kind of having it be this kind of like scarce digital thing. So yeah, I'd say there's certainly there's an arc there as far as like I mean, in 2014 when they first released. I mean, the use case was using tokens as like stocks and trading them as stocks, and I think that kind of that kind of fell away pretty quickly because I guess people realized that it didn't make a lot of sense to like if you get your if someone steals like half of your tokens or something, like they don't own half of your company now, so it's like there's a there's a place for tokens, and I think what I really love about like the idea of NFTs, which I mean that wasn't a term until CryptoKitties invented it. I mean a few years after, or I'd say a little over a year after Rare Pepes came out. But this idea that these things can just exist digitally, like they're not representative of anything in the physical world. They just exist in the digital world. So I think that not having to maintain that link was what makes them so interesting, because there's not this like other way you can do. I mean, all the other ideas like doing as tickets, all that stuff, it's like there's this link to the real world, whereas something like Rare Pepes and other like collectible tokens and NFTs and stuff like don't have any links to the real world, and that actually makes them more valuable in my mind, because you don't have to maintain this link. So yeah, I think that's really what turned me on to these collectible like tokens as collectibles, and really kind of sent me down the rabbit hole with Rare Pepes too, and kind of inspired me to want to collect them and build a wallet and do all that. So
yeah, I mean, the couple of points there I wanted to expand on too is that's like you mentioned, one of the things that is like really blows me away and made me fall in love with Rare Pepes is the fact that, like you said, anyone can contribute and submit art and take part in this like decentralized like project. Is the breadth of the cards and the art, and the range of the, I don't know, the entire project is really astounding across all 1,700 plus cards. So it's really a fascinating project. And to your point too, I also agree about being strictly digital as a positive. I mean, you don't have to deal with like cardboard boxes full of like trading cards or anything like that because they're not physical. It's way more appropriate for the digital age.
absolutely, I know, and I think of that we're just finishing up a renovation at my house, and so I had to move a lot of boxes and stuff, and I've got all these boxes of like baseball cards, and like because I was a big collector just as a kid. I loved collecting things, and so I have an even bigger appreciation for having things be all digital and not having to lug these boxes of things around.
Oh yeah, and it takes one of the chief benefits of crypto, which is the fact that like a lot of gold, there's still like some holdouts that are gold bugs that don't really appreciate the fact that, worst comes to worst, if you need to travel across the world, you can just take a ledger with you, or you can have a brain wallet, and there's nothing to stop you. But with physical assets, I mean, I don't know, it can be a burden, to both to maintain and to transport. So for sure. Yeah. So you were So your first card was actually a couple cards were in season one. Um, how soon after Mike dropped dropped the Nakamoto did you get involved?
I'd say immediately. I mean, I saw those posts in the counterparty Telegram chat, um, and pretty quickly. So Sean Leary, who's um, another Rare Pepe scientist, I had known him through counterparty prior to Rare Pepes, and so he kind of created this other chat, which was like a scientist chat. So Mike created the main Rare Pepe trading chat, and then Sean created this other smaller chat, which ended up being the scientists. Um, and yeah, we just that was where we kind of talked about the how the rules for people submitting Rare Pepes, and um, I had at the time I had just finished work on a web wallet, which turned into Rare Pepe wallet. Um, so I was interested in like kind of taking what I had built and just I was like, why don't we just make this a Rare Pepe wallet, and your cards will show up in here, and I can like reskin it to just be Rare Pepes and stuff. So yeah, I mean I'd say very much like as soon as Mike dropped that, it became oh, here's this fun thing we can do. Because at the time, I mean, we were still in a bear market and had been for better part of 2 years. So it was all of a sudden it was this cool, fun thing that we could do um, in crypto that wasn't necessarily like trying to trade shitcoins or doing something that was just like opining on the price or anything like that. So yeah, no, and I think that's kind of the timing was perfect, and people were attracted to it because it was something different, and it was fun, and we didn't take ourselves too seriously, and I mean people just wanted to make their own Rare Pepe cards, so that's what we did.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about the context of the market back then, but you're right. I mean, back then we had the after Bitcoin hit 1200, it went it crashed. I don't know if you say crashed, but it went down to, you know what, 300, 400, 500 bucks, and it kind of languished there for a long time. So I could definitely see how this would be a nice diversion from that.
Yeah, and I mean you'll see in a lot of the early like the early Rare Pepes that people kind of like mocking like crypto projects that were around at the time, and I mean one of Mike's second and third cards was one was Mount Gox related, and the other one was shitcoin card. So they're very much it's a it's kind of this commentary on like the crypto space at the time, but then what it did is it kind of just turned into just a commentary on just like pop culture too. um so like my first Rare Pepe party, I mean it talks about spamming the blockchain since January 2014, and that was um there was a the Bitcoin, I guess the Bitcoin fundamentalists, let's say, were not interested in counterparty because they saw it as spam. They're very much into the idea that Bitcoin was this pure thing that was just money, and then anybody trying to kind of create this other use case on top of it was just spamming the chain. So kind of like took that and kind of like wore it as a badge of honor in a way. So and that was kind of like the impetus behind that first Rare Pepe that I made.
Well, that's interesting. You know, and it's kind of funny that we've kind of gone full circle now where, you know, back then in 2014, like, you know, the blockchain was pretty much empty. You could send a transaction in Bitcoin for essentially for free. But, you know, nowadays, you know, with the uptake of Bitcoin and now the amount of value that's stored on there, because we have the small blockchain or block size, there's actually a need for, if they're going to maintain the 1 MB block size, they actually need the fees to be higher to make it profitable for miners to sustain it. So there's actually a value for the counterparty people paying more for their transactions just to bid up the price of transactions on the network in a way,
Yeah, I mean, I've always looked at Bitcoin as it's an open network, and if you pay the fee, then you get to play. You get to play. So,
Yeah.
what if whatever your use case is, if you're paying the fee, it's a valid use case. So, yeah, I mean, but I mean, there were waves over the years of fees going up, and I mean, even in 2014, there was like a spike in fees, and I mean, that part of the reason Doge Party, which was counterparty, released on top of Dogecoin. I mean, that came out 6 months after Counterparty did, and the reason was because fees were too high on Bitcoin. So it's the fees is, I mean, it's an ongoing story, but what's funny is that I mean, right now your Bitcoin fees are maybe $1, like $2, which is like what we were basically paying like when the fees were too high in 2015. They were $1, so it's like it's kind of interesting how that the ebb and flow of fees on chain. But I think it's just the nature of the system. It's an open system, so it will find equilibrium at some point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, long term, I think for, if the goal truly is mass adoption, then we should see a way where fees should eventually settle down lower in order to allow smaller transactions. Now, whether that ends up being Lightning or something else is, I don't know, kind of a off topic, but yeah, for sure, that's definitely a fun card. Um, and when you started creating these, like your early cards, did you hold on to most of them, or did you just immediately set up dispensers, or you give them away? What'd you do?
Well, I mean, at the time, I mean, dispensers are a relatively new phenomenon on Counterparty
Oh,
within the
okay.
last couple of years. But no, I mean, I basically used them to trade for other Pepes. So
Okay.
it was kind of like I would sell, I mean, a handful. I mean, sell them. You're trading it for XCP or Pepe Cash through Rare Pepe wallet, and then use that to then just turn around and buy more Pepes. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't something that I was doing as like certainly it wasn't like making any money what creating these things. I was more of a like I need more supply to trade for other people's cards. So yeah, and I mean I'd say as ideas would pop up, I if I thought of something that I thought was funny, I'd make a Rare Pepe out of it. But um, being also a collector, I mean, I have at least one of all the cards that I've created. Just in the way I need to, if I'm going to collect as many as I can, I at least need those too. So, but yeah, I mean, it really varies from Rare Pepe to Rare Pepe. I mean, some I only have one left, like Zero Wing Pepe. I have one left of that. But I mean, something like I'm with Pepe, I probably have a handful of those still, and Pepe Party too. So, um, yeah, I mean, it was always just a tool to get more Pepes at the end of the day.
It's ironic you say that, because I missed the boat on the OG Rare Pepes, but they still have the fake rare project going on, and I'm working on a submission there. But I have to admit that one, I just wanted to have my own card officially in a directory, but I have to admit that's one of my motivations, is just to be able to use those to trade and build up my collection too. So once you get started, it's a little bit addictive.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really, I mean, that's part of the culture, I think, and what makes like Rare Pepes and fake rares and dank rares and Wojak Way and like all these other Fock heads, and like there's just a bunch of I'd say projects using the Rare Pepe model that have sprung up on Counterparty. And it really is this culture of the artists are the collectors. So it's a lot of, I mean, if you look in the Telegram chats, there's a lot of people that trade cards rather than just selling them. And yeah, I mean, it really is. It's not, you don't just come in as a collector. And I think this is the kind of the big difference between something like Rare Pepes and these other projects that kind of follow that same model, and then the like PFP projects you see on Ethereum, where it's like in that their model there is you have one artist or one group that creates all of the all of the tokens, and then everyone else is just a collector. Whereas with Rare Pepes and fake rares and dank rares, and you come in, I mean, Rare Pepes now we've closed the directory, so you can't make more of those. But at least when that was going on, which is similar to how these other directories that are still open, it very much was the artists are the collectors. And I mean, you might come in as a collector, and then you kind of get the bug that like, oh, I could make something. I could make something like this, even if you aren't a talented artist, and it's really accessible to anybody. So I think that's what makes it so fun, and really like more of a feeling of a community rather than a bunch of bag holders, because you're all involved. This is you've all kind of, everybody has taken the time to create something, and this whole directory is just this collection of all these things that everybody's created together. So I think there's a lot more value. Personally, I see that a lot more value, especially long-term value, in something like that. And just like you feel, it feels more like a community rather than these other these projects where and they call themselves a community, but it's really just a bunch of collectors. It's not necessarily like creators and too. It's so yeah, I mean, I that's really what drew me in the beginning. That and this like novel use of tokens. At the time, nobody was really doing anything like that. But then also this like just this community of collectors and artists, and the collectors becoming artists is like, it really sucks you in. I'm sure, you know, as somebody coming into it like relatively recently, it really does like demand a lot of your attention, and it's fun. I mean, you feel like you're part of it. So um yeah, I think it's been great to see that sort of model continue with what started as just fake rares, and then really has branched off into all these other similar type of things, all built on Counterparty, and kind of taking it to like spreading it about amongst like new communities, but still using that model where everyone's involved.
Yeah, I think you're right too. Another one of the points you made, I think, is probably accurate. And well, I can at least speak for myself. Is, you know, a lot of the like the PFP collections and whatnot, a lot of that really has like, you know, there's some people that are in it for other reasons, but you know, I think a lot of the participation is really about trading and flipping, right? Whereas at least for myself, in you know, like at least the way I'm approaching Rare Pepes, I'm trying to get as many individual unique Rare Pepes as possible. And you know, like we're kind of entering a bear market again, and you know, it doesn't bother me very much, because I don't have any intention of selling any of my, like the ones I only have one of, unless I think that, you know, Bitcoin is doomed or something. So I mean, I don't know, it's just like the way you start to think about Pepes is or at least that I approach Pepes is not really about, you know, making money. It's more about like building a bigger collection, you know.
Yeah, it's very much the like collector mindset, where like you're you want to build your collection, and it's unique, and it means something to you. And so it's like you might have a Pepe that's just like hard to find, and like you may not have like any number where you want to sell it, because it's like you had to find it, like you located it and were able to like make a deal and get it. And I mean, it's very much the like collector mindset rather than the like trade, like say like flipper mindset. I mean, you certainly
Yes.
get that. I mean, especially as the markets move and people see opportunities. But I mean, the people that have stuck around for it, I mean, since the beginning, I mean, a lot of it is like you like collecting them. So yeah, it's definitely, it's a different vibe than what you see really on the Ethereum side.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, you know, getting into your second card, Still Pepe, that's a play on one of the on like an early Dr. Dre uh, song, right?
Yeah, still Dre.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's definitely a fun card too. I know that one's still popular as well, and that's another series one as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was just I don't know why the ideas come to me, but for whatever reason, I like I might have even been like listening to it like to Dr. Dre or something, and that song came on and I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like still Dre, still Pepe. So yeah, I mean like I said, like I certainly like I'm not a classically trained artist, but they're very much just in the like, oh, I can make this funny card, and they make me laugh. So um, yeah, it's just something I like put together. So yeah,
Well,
it's funny to see them now. Like I don't know why I decided to make that Pepe, but for whatever reason, that's what popped into my head that day.
well, you know, speaking of ones that just make you laugh, one of my favorite cards that you created, I just and I don't know exactly what it is about the way you did the face, but the I'm with Pepe. I mean, it's so spot on. It really, you can still identify it as Hillary Clinton, but you know, to play on that campaign slogan from 2016, it's you know, regardless of price, that's just one of the most, for me, one of the most catching of the series one Pepes.
Yeah, I think it was some um I think Pepe Bros, which is the like 8-bit like Mario Brothers Pepe, was
Uh-huh.
the first one. I remember when that came out because they decided not to use the card border that Mike provided. Um, so like Pepe Party and Still Pepe kind of still use that border that looks like a trading card. And then once I saw someone like not use the border, I'm like, oh, I got to make one that doesn't use the border. And then I probably saw the Hillary Clinton ad, the like I'm with her ad, and I was like, oh, this will be perfect. I'll just make a Pepe face and make it I'm with Pepe. Um, so yeah, that was kind of like my thought there is I wanted to make one without the border. And that was just the first thing that for whatever reason I thought of. So um yeah, there was a couple iterations of that one. I actually found the other day, like I did it in color at first, and I was like, "Oh, that doesn't." It's like because the hair and the shirt are in black and white, so I got to make the Pepe in black and white too. So, um, yeah, no, it's funny to like look at. I mean, they're made in like paintbrush, and like it's like they're like so shitty, but I don't know. There's something about like the style of making Pepe's, like they can be kind of shitty and still be good. So, and you can kind of see that throughout the directory too.
Yeah, totally, exactly. Like exactly like, you know, it's obvious that, you know, some master artist didn't make I'm with Pepe, but it's still one of my it's still such an amazing Pepe to look at. I don't know, it's really captivating, at least for me.
Yeah, and I think it kind of captures like what I like to look at Rare Pepe as kind of as like a time like a time capsule almost.
Totally.
And that's what was going on. The 2016 election was was going on right when, I mean, it started September 2016 and the election was in November. So I mean, it was that's just what was going on at the time. So um yeah, I mean, a lot of these are, I think that's probably my only one that I made really. Well, Bad Hair Day, although that's a very very specific reference, that one. Um but yeah, it was probably that and I'm with Pepe are the only ones that I've made that are like timeline specific. Whereas the other ones were just things that came to my mind. So um but yeah, I mean, that's why it's fun to kind of just look through the whole directory, because it is very much like a time capsule.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, a lot of it just takes you back. Um, and one of the cards you created is one that takes me back to, a teenager when the meme was really popular with your zeroing Pepe, which was a play on the all your base meme.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it was one of that. I mean, that was one of the early internet memes that I was exposed to. That all your base are belong to us. I remember that I used to um I used to go to a website called English.com. I don't know if it's still around, but it was just funny. It was like the broken English, bad translations. So yeah, that I mean that was one of that was one of the things that early internet that I was into. So I thought it made sense to make a Pepe out of it.
Yeah, and it's one of the early low supply Pepes too. So it's a 50 supply. And why did you choose to because previously your cards were pretty high supply. I mean, you're 1,000, almost 1,000, and then two that are right around 500. So why'd you decide to make your first low supply one?
I don't know. I mean, it really was just experimenting with. I mean, if you look at the supply of the different Pepes I've made, they're all over the place. So I think it really was just um, like really just experimenting with doing different supply, and then that gives it. I mean, there's the idea of having a low supply and it being higher value is good, but there's like a fine line between um not having enough supply and then having too much. So yeah, I think it really was just, I mean, like Bay Pepe I made was only a 15 supply. I think that was the lowest supply one that I made. I mean, I just, these numbers, there's no special meaning to them. I just came up with a number and that's what I did. So um yeah, and those were all I think it was like mid-season or series 3 when we changed the supply rules where it had to be between 100 and 100,000. Um, just because we were all collectors too, and we wanted to be able to collect them. So we kind of set the minimum at 100. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was just experimentation. There was really no rhyme or reason or much kind of forethought that went into it.
Yeah, and was the Zero Wing really well received when you put that out? Because I think it's one of your more striking ones as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure people. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head. But I mean, it's certainly a meme that people recognized. Because I mean, anybody who was around the internet um, early on would have certainly recognized that meme. So yeah, I mean, I don't really know. I don't really. I mean, personally, I don't consider myself one of the great Rare Pepe artists. I'd say my contribution was more in building the wallet,
Mhm.
and as a scientist, and like kind of help forming the rules and kind of how curation worked, and how Pepes were arranged in series and things like that. So
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, I still love making Pepes. So
Well, let's just briefly go through the rest of your cards then, and then we'll get more into what you're more proud of or passionate about. Um, so your next card, which was Gadsden Pepe, um, kind of a play on that on the Gadsden flag.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that was a meme that I'm pretty sure already existed. The Pepe as the Gadsden flag snake and the don't tread on memes. So I just kind of I drew my own version and then turned it into a Rare Pepe card. So yeah, that, and then like Bay Pepe, that was, I think I saw the bathing ape logo and just imagined it as a Pepe in my head, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna make a Pepe about that, and just change the ape into a frog. Yeah, we want to just like go down the line. Mob Pepe, I'm a big Mob Deep fan. So I I just decided I wanted to make a Rare Pepe out of them. Pepe Gotchi was my first GIF, my first animated Pepe. It's
Oh,
very
cool.
simple.
Yeah.
It's two frames. So it was I thought it came out really good. I think that's probably
Yeah.
one of my probably the best quality ones I'd say I've made was Pepe Gotchi. Because it does look like a Tamagotchi Pepe.
It's really crisp too, for quality of the early Pepes. A lot of them are kind of low res or kind of washed out or whatever, but it still holds up.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely proud of that one. I think that one came out really well. Mount Pepe More was just another like funny idea I had to do, like Mount Rushmore, but with Pepe's, but then with Pepe's as the presidents. Like I don't know if you noticed, it's like that's a Pepe Theodore Roosevelt, like a
Yeah.
um, but yeah, Bad Hair Day. That was actually a malformed counterparty transaction halted the network. And it was a hair Pepe transaction. So that's literally a hair Pepe like stuck in the gears of counterparty until a bug fix was implemented, probably like less than 24 hours later to get it going again.
I did want to say
Pepe,
like I was mentioned earlier, like some cards you get like obsessed about and like hunt down, and Pepe Little is one that I was obsessed with for a little while. The first time I saw it in an auction, I was just obsessed with it. I really love this card. So go ahead.
yeah, I'd say Pepe Little probably like took me the most time to make because I actually edited it frame by frame to like color Tony Little as Pepe. And then like you can see it, I don't know if you noticed, like on the TV in the background is Rare Pepe wallet.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like doing like I think I went I decided to go for it on the GIF and just make it like the whole thing is animated. But no, I that's one I'm like pretty proud of. I thought it came out pretty well.
I think
But
it's
yeah,
it's an amazing card, and the other thing that always gets me too is the way you did the eyes too on that card.
yeah, I mean, it really was a frame by frame edit for that one, so it came out pretty funny.
How long did that take you? Or ballpark?
It was the day. It was like a
Okay.
day. I took the day to do it. It was actually I think I took the day off of work that day, and then I can't remember why, but then I just decided, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna spend the day making this one Pepe, and it really did. I mean, it really did take me the day to make because I like colored it frame by frame and did it all on Photoshop, which isn't like the most conducive platform to making GIFs. So yeah, but I thought it ended up, the final product came out pretty well.
Yeah, awesome. Ken, do you want to talk about Invisible Pepe?
Yeah, so Invisible Pepe, that was Mike actually registered that originally. And we joked about like making a Pepe that was invisible for months prior. And for whatever reason, we just decided not to do it. And then it was to end the we were talking about ending the directory there at 1500 when we issued Invisible Pepe, and it was right before the Rare Art Festival, which was kind of like a seminal event in crypto art, when the Homer Pepe auction for $40,000 at the time, and it was kind of a big deal in crypto art in general. But there's a lot of after that there was a lot of interest in people wanting to make Pepe, so we reopened it for a couple weeks and got inundated with new Pepes and ended up closing it again at 1774, which was where we ended up finally kind of drawing the line and closing it for good. But yeah, it's just just a funny idea, a transparent GIF as the Pepe. So yeah, no, that was kind of a group effort, and I think it was something we kind of just like joked about in the chat and months prior, and finally we're going to use it to close out the directory, and then it ended up just being the end of series 30.
I didn't know there was actually a transparent element to it, so that's cool.
Yeah, it's a transparent GIF.
Oh, cool. You know, and your the final card that you're listed as the artist for, the POWH, it isn't that from back when they had those Ponzi schemes on Ethereum, where is that what that was a reference to?
Yes, it was like, so I was always very skeptical about Ethereum as a platform, and kind of like use cases, and kind of just like the technical structure and how it works, and its kind of longevity and everything. But when proof of weak hands came out, and it was like, oh, this is a smart contract, because it literally is this like Ponzi scheme thing that you try to like and everyone knew it was a Ponzi scheme, this proof of weak hands contract. But it was before like the DeFi craze, and it came after ICO and utility tokens, and it was just this kind of like funny way to have this like smart contract. So you just deploy this thing, and then people can interact with it, and it's this kind of like game. It's just a game, and it's like this race condition to try to accumulate and like get out before it collapses, kind of thing. So that was the first time I ever used Ethereum, was the proof of weak hands contract. And I remember I bought 1 ETH and put it in, and then within like 4 days it collapsed and I lost. But it was like, I never intended not to lose it. I think 1 ETH was like $100 at the time, and it was like, oh, I'm just going to experiment with this thing. Yeah, I think it kind of opened my eyes to like, oh, maybe there is something to ETH. I definitely like, I still have my reservations about it, and very much like more into like NFTs built on counterparty and Bitcoin as this kind of like things that will stand the test of time. But yeah, when proof of weak hands collapsed, I just like, proof of weak hands just got accepted by the scientists into the directory, and then it collapsed, and I was like, well, now I have to burn them all. So that's what I did. So it was so no one can ever have a complete Rare Pepe collection, because proof of weak hands, and I think it still is the only Rare Pepe that's completely burnt. So every token that was issued was burned. So yeah, I guess it is unique in that way, and it's kind of funny that was the last one that I made. But yeah, no, it was
That's
kind
really
of
funny.
Yeah, kind of
You know what? One thing that off memory, back whenever the proof of weak hands, and there are a bunch of other like copycat like Ponzi schemes, and off memory, I think even like, remember, it wasn't like I might be butchering the name, but like Trayvon Martin and some of those like BitConnect pumpers, and you know, some of those early like altcoin pump and dumpers were getting involved in their own versions too. I mean, it was just The scams were
Oh, I'm
just running
sure.
wild. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, once something like that comes out and people see that other people put money into it, then yeah, of course, they just came out and copied it. And but in a lot of ways, like proof of weak hands is um what opened my eyes to the potential of Ethereum. And then yeah, I mean, it certainly has its place in the market, but it is funny that it was it was a in your face Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
It made no it didn't try to pretend it was anything but what it was, which I appreciated. So yeah, it's kind of funny, but
Yeah.
that was my first Ethereum experience. I prior to that I had never even used Ethereum.
That is also, I thought was funny too, is that it was, like you said, very in your face and really upfront about the fact it was a scam, but it was just kind of daring you to daring you to try and win.
Exactly, which was what I thought was so interesting about it.
Yeah, so well, so we've yeah, and I didn't know that that was the only card that there's zero left of. So that's an interesting footnote too. Um, well, let's talk about your role as a Pepe scientist and also some of your technical contributions too. So when did you become involved as a scientist and start reviewing the submissions?
So kind of like what we talked about earlier, where Sean created the kind of the scientist chat that I mean, at the time we were just um it was just a handful of us that were got into it early and decided that this is going to be mayhem if we don't like make some rules for how you submit things to the directory. And um once I created Rare Pepe wallet, and it was something that I got up and running probably within a week or two of Mike dropping the Nakamoto card, because it was a wallet that was already fully functional and working, and I just reskinned it as Rare Pepe wallet. So the timing of that worked out really well. But there was a need for curation um, once the wallet was out, and then having the directory. And I mean, I've got to host a website, so I don't want questionable things on a website that I'm hosting. So that was Mike kind of created the rules, but they had to be safe for work. That it just like these kind of just like loose guidelines for creating Pepe's. And then Mike actually single-handedly curated like I think the first 1,000 Pepe's
Oh
himself.
wow.
So like manually, like people, you just had to like DM it to him. You had to burn Pepe Cash. That was kind of our spam filter. But yeah, no, Mike personally curated. I'm pretty sure it was the first 1,000. And then John, another scientist, created a Telegram bot that he could automate it. And then we, as the scientists, and that was just a meme that came out of a comment Mike made when people were like had submitted Pepe's, were waiting for him to get back, and he was working through his backlog, and he started making these just like memes of scientists looking at Rare Pepe cards, like stock images of scientists. And then it turned into like it's the Rare Pepe scientists that are reviewing your submission. And then we just came to call ourselves the Rare Pepe scientists. So it's like important to remember that like this was all like off the cuff. Like there was no pre-planning in how Rare Pepes were going to work. We just kind of like made some rules and ran with it. And then as things kind of came up, and like the scientist meme, then we just started calling ourselves scientists. So but yeah, after the first 1,000, there was a more automated method for the scientists. We would kind of like vote on cards as they were submitted. And it was I even forget how we did the voting, but it was only like I think it was a majority just had to vote yes for it to get in, and but if one person voted no, it got like kicked back. So it was yeah, it was just a process that we worked through, and the kind of the best way to do it. But I think one of the interesting things with that was we never um because you had to burn Pepe cash to submit a Pepe. I mean, you had invested something as the artist. So if your Pepe got rejected, um, we would just go back and kind of give you our input as to why it got rejected, and then let you resubmit. So without having to burn any more Pepe cash. So it wasn't like we were trying to, we're basically trying to just maintain this certain level. I hate to say a certain level of quality, but just kind of sticking within the guidelines, right? So, but we would, yeah, we certainly didn't want anyone to feel like they got burned. Because they burned this Pepe cash and didn't get to get their Pepe in. So yeah, we tell them what the issue was, and they let them resubmit or submit something completely different or whatever. So it was very much like we'd work with whoever the artists were, and also like we weren't being paid. I mean, that you burned Pepe cash to submit your Pepe. You didn't pay the scientists. So it was a labor of love. It wasn't it wasn't for profit or anything. So yeah, it's just funny how it all just evolved.
I had a quick question too in that whole thing is, so I know you guys established some kind of loose criteria. Did you actually, in terms of filtering, did you have some wildly inappropriate submissions that you did have to filter out, or, um,
I because Mike curated the first 1,000 himself. Um, I think I don't. I personally didn't see any wildly inappropriate ones, but
okay,
I mean, we were pretty well established by that point. And I'm guessing if there were some bad ones, Mike probably filtered them himself. And
sure.
the rest of us as scientists didn't necessarily see them. So yeah, no, it really was, and it's funny because I mean, at the time Rare Pepe started, like 2 days later was when Hillary Clinton came out and declared Rare Pepe, or Pepe the Frog, was a hate symbol, and it was the alt right and all this,
Yeah,
and it being this kind of like internet culture phenomenon years prior to that, and us using it as the Rare Pepes, which the Rare Pepe meme itself was this kind of spin-off of Pepe the Frog, like I think probably 2 years before Rare Pepes the project was a thing. So we were um, cognizant of that, and I mean, you even see that in the like the rules. Like Pepe's been, I think one of the rules Mike wrote was like keep it clean because Pepe has been getting a lot of bad press lately. Um, so I mean, but we didn't, because that wasn't our community, right? I mean,
mhm,
so it's funny to get asked about that, because that's what was like the mainstream um, exposure to Pepe the Frog, but really, um, like Pepe had been around in crypto years prior to that, so it was never a thing that like we really saw as an issue, because we just didn't see it. So it wasn't like because we weren't an alt right chat, we were a crypto collector, Rare Pepe enthusiast chat, you know. So it really wasn't it wasn't an issue for us because that wasn't what our community was.
sure. Yeah, the reason I ask is just because you're dealing with memes, and some of these meme lords can just go for shock value or go for an extreme. So that's why I thought maybe you'd get some really crazy stuff. And like whenever I think about hear the term Pepe scientist, I always imagine this card that's in the directory called Check Pepe, which I really love. So such a cool image, of inspecting the Pepe under a microscope.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So Yeah, so that's interesting. How much time were you guys putting in evaluating these cards after you started helping out with helping out the group?
Yeah, no, I mean, Mike obviously put in a lot of time. I mean, I was busy, kind of working on Rare Pepe wallet and keeping that maintained and everything. And then um, it really wasn't too much to curate as they'd slowly filter in. It's just it was through a Telegram bot. We had another Telegram chat, like the scientist curation chat, where we would just like vote yes or no. It really didn't take much time at all. Um, but once the Rare Art Festival happened, and we reopened the directory in early 2018, it got a lot more interest, and it really did start to become like a job. I mean, we were getting like a ton of like 10, 20, 30 rare pepes in a day. Um, so I think that was it started to feel like work a little bit. And that was part of the impetus for kind of finally closing the directory for good. And it was something we'd always wanted to do at some point anyway. I mean, we talked about closing it at I think it was at 1,000 with the Feels Good Man card. Then we talked about closing it at 1,500 with the Invisible Pepe. So we knew we were going to close it at some point. So, but yeah, it did. We got it when we reopened it that last time. It was like it was just inundated with Pepe's, and so it did start feeling like a job. And at that point, we decided to close the book and seal the directory.
No, interesting. Yeah, and you've mentioned your work on Rare Pepe Wallet. One thing I wanted to kind of bring up and have you speak to, though, is that, one of the issues with, or maybe I shouldn't say issue, it's just kind of a way Counterparty works that, the original token creator or and the person who owns that asset can then update the metadata. So it's pointing to a different image or whatnot. So you created a tool that basically archives all of the rare pepes and their images in GitHub. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so Pepe chain is kind of is what you're referring to, and
Yeah.
basically what that is, um, I mean, there was a lot of calls even early on um, to put an image hash in the image description of whatever the Pepe is, um, so that we have this, I mean, very much like an IPFS link, right? It's this fingerprint of the image so that you can confirm that, yes, this is what the token looks like. Um, Personally, at the time, it, I didn't think it was that necessary, um, because my thinking was, and still is, I mean, if you collect the thing, it's up to you to to maintain a copy of the image, so that years from now, if all copies of the Rare directory are lost, at least you have a copy of the image for the Pepes that you own. But kind of to appease everybody. And I mean, another issue too, I mean, a lot of these artists um were not great with the tools that were available, trying to create a hash of, like, trying to make everybody create a hash of their Pepe and write it in the description and confirming that that hash is correct and everything was just, it was just an extra step that um would have been difficult for some people and just didn't like didn't feel with dealing with at the time. So what I did is I created this thing called Pepe chain, which essentially is, it takes all of the images, all the rare Pepe images, um, takes a hash of the image, each image, and then creates this Merkle root hash of all the images together. So you kind of get this one fingerprint of the entire directory. And then I did the same thing with the asset names. So you get a fingerprint of all the asset names that are in the directory, as well as what they look like. And then when we finally wrapped up and closed the directory for good, I had Mike broadcast the final root hash for the images and the assets from his address that he created the Nakamoto card with. So it kind of like ties everything together and gives people a way that you can store the entire Rare Pepe directory locally on your machine if you want, all the images and all the assets, and then you can verify that they're correct or validate them using those hashes that Mike broadcast on chain. So it kind of gives you the ability to confirm that all the images are correct for all the different Pepes, but you just do it all at once rather than on a per image basis. And one of the things I did too is I actually created a bunch of archival DVDs and wrote the contents of Pepe Chain onto them, and I try to remember to bring them with me anytime I go to like an in real life event for Bitcoin or for NFTs or Rare Pepes or whatever, and then I just hand them out so that it's we've got this kind of like long-term storage of people all over the world that have these archival Pepe Chain DVDs that at any moment can be called upon to recreate the Rare Pepe directory. So yeah, it's kind of this just a fun take on how do you store the images long term for NFTs, and the fact of the matter is, it's like nobody cares what your token looks like but you, right? Or like for your collection, like nobody cares unless they have it, right? So it's kind of created this this mirror, like there's many mirrors of the Rare Pepe directory that can be validated on chain if necessary. If Rare Pepe wallet were to go down, or the Rare Pepe directory were to go down, or anything like that. So there's kind of this immutable record available.
Yeah, which is really cool because, you know, we can already see the value. I mean, you're really forward thinking and when you created that, because what we've already seen, if you go through some of the assets, we have seen some of the asset owners have changed what they're pointing to. So they're no longer on X chain, they're no longer, or counterparty, they're no longer pointing to the original image. But if you go to Rare Pepe directory, or if you use, you know, Pepe chain, you can know what image it was originally referring to.
Yeah, it's also important to remember too, like you can change the description as an asset owner, but you can't delete the old descriptions. There's still a record of them on chain. So
Oh, that's a good point.
so you can literally just go open an asset, drop down the issuances tab, and you can see every issuance transaction related to that asset, which would be all the description changes. So you still can see the history of description changes because it's all on chain.
Okay,
So
I didn't know that.
yeah, I mean, yeah, so maybe X chain would it's going to show you the most recent one, but it's not the old ones are still there because every counterparty transaction is an on-chain transaction, so there's still a record of it, whether it's the most recent description update or not.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, that definitely makes sense. You know, and so yeah, Rare Pepe wallet is still one of the most popular wallets in use today, but I know that you've recently announced that you're going to be working on a new project that I'm personally excited about. Do you want to talk about your new endeavor?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm finally taking the dive into crypto full time, and we'll be working on building out another wallet that I built as a proof of concept prior to the second Rare Art Festival in 2019. And it's a Chrome extension wallet called Freeport. And the impetus for creating that at the time was to show that you could create NFTs on Bitcoin with just Bitcoin. So one of the kind of unique features of counterparty is you can create assets that are numeric, so that you don't get the nice like name, vanity plate name, but it's just a string of numbers. But you don't need anything but Bitcoin to create those. So it was kind of this proof of concept to just kind of show that you can create Bitcoin NFTs with just Bitcoin. It's kind of to show that like Bitcoiners who kind of have dismissed counterparty over the years, like it's kind of just to demonstrate that like counterparty is Bitcoin. It's just like a way to interpret Bitcoin that's a little different than the just like core software and system itself. But yeah, I'm going to be taking that wallet Freeport and just kind of bringing it up to date, and then also kind of build some like content script interaction capability similar to a MetaMask, where you can interact with the wallet that's your Chrome extension, like through a website. So web developers can kind of use special tags and scripts to interact with the wallet if the person viewing the website has it downloaded as a Chrome extension. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm gonna hoping to get hardware support, hardware wallet support connected into that pretty soon too. So kind of just bringing the counterparty ecosystem kind of up to date with the rest of the NFT ecosystem with other chains. So yeah, it should be fun. It'll be fun to get focused on building out counterparty stuff, because I've kind of been more of an observer the last couple of years. So it'll be really fun to kind of dive back into it and start building stuff.
I mean, I think that's a brilliant idea for modernizing the Freeport. That's something that has been desperately needed in the counterparty community as a wallet with hardware wallet support. So and I could definitely see, once we have that like an extension type, almost MetaMask type thing, then we can allow some more elegant ways of managing your counterparty NFTs too. So I don't know. I think that's really exciting. But one thing you did bring up is that like not a lot of Bitcoiners were accepting, or there were some aspersions for counterparty by some Bitcoin people. What was the resistance there?
I think a lot of it is like seeing. I guess take a step back. Like I consider myself a Bitcoiner, right? So
Yeah.
Bitcoiners are a diverse group of people, but there's kind of different subgroups within Bitcoiners, and some have a more kind of purist mentality where everything like the focus should be on Bitcoin, the currency, and everything should be built around that, and not necessarily like whereas counterparty utilizes Bitcoin, the public infrastructure, to create essentially a smart contract on top of Bitcoin, which is counterparty. So it's just kind of a different use case for Bitcoin. But yeah, I think there's also, counterparty itself has a token called XCP that was created by burning Bitcoin at the inception of counterparty in 2014. So it was kind of the opposite at the time. In the fall of 2013, a project called Mastercoin released, which is actually the first ICO in crypto, where they raised X amount of Bitcoin for creating this protocol on top of Bitcoin, very similar to the way Counterparty works, except you were basically buying these tokens ahead of time, like an ICO. So what Counterparty did a couple months later is basically created a similar system to Mastercoin, but said, like, we think this ICO fundraise component of it is like not ideal way to launch this network. And instead, we're going to do it the way you get these counterparty tokens is by burning your Bitcoin, like provably destroying them, which was a novel idea at the time. But what it did is it created this kind of native token within Counterparty that has, I mean, its number one use is creating named assets. So like all of the Rare Pepes the assets have a name, or that kind of vanity license plate looking name. You need this Counterparty token to create those names. So I think from a Bitcoin perspective, any kind of additional token is a scam or useless, and so it was kind of a turn off to the kind of like the Bitcoin purist mentality. So but I mean, over time, I think it's become more accepted by more Bitcoiners, and just kind of seeing the NFT narrative kind of run through the mainstream, and really like NFTs are a Bitcoin story that then like people on Ethereum kind of took it and ran with it. But like really the first NFTs, I mean, there's obviously Namecoin is kind of ran parallel to Counterparty in a way, with having these kind of collectible tokens, or in that case like domains or names. But really this idea of like crypto art and creating like this art on kind of pairing the like images with with tradable tokens and stuff like that was really a Counterparty Bitcoin story. So I think as NFTs got more popular and people started to realize that, oh, hey, like we were doing this on Bitcoin before, I mean, before Ethereum even existed. I mean, the early Spells of Genesis cards came out prior to the Ethereum even launching the network. So, yeah, I mean, this stuff has been going on Bitcoin for a while. So, yeah, I think it's just the mentality. I mean, Bitcoiners are a very diverse group of people. So,
Sure.
there's sections of them that are into this stuff, and other kind of people that aren't. But I think everyone has this kind of curious nature, and to even get into crypto in the first place. So I think as time goes on, and that I think they'll gain more kind of acceptance as a thing that exists on Bitcoin.
Yeah, like you're saying, Counterparty is definitely one of the big players in the early NFT space. There's only a handful of chains capable of doing anything, even that qualifies NFT prior to that, like Namecoin and whatnot. But one thing that I'm excited about with NFTs is, early on, like we kept waiting for adoption of crypto. But one thing I see as like really a real driver of adoption is NFTs in and of themselves. So I think the more people that are willing to like pay attention and consider buying NFTs, it's just going to be a positive, because I've seen so many people where they never would have taken the leap to get like set up a wallet and buy crypto if it weren't for an asset that they wanted to buy on that chain. So the more people we get on board, the better long term. It just makes it harder for governments and whatnot to censor and shut down if a greater population is actively using crypto. So ultimately I think there's that angle too.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, yeah, you get a different get a different type of person, right? Like people that get into Bitcoin and crypto because it's this alternate money is someone that has to be somewhat interested in alternate money, right? So that's not everybody. And so I really do think like having collectibles, like digital collectibles, be a use case, digital art, digital collectibles being a use case of public blockchains. I think definitely it brings in this whole different different group of people that maybe wouldn't have been into the currency aspect if not for the other stuff. So yeah, no, I absolutely see it as a, a big driver of just like general adoption of crypto.
Yeah, you know, and how does it feel, you know, looking back, you know, you have such a long history in the NFT and you know, even as a developer in the counterparty space. I mean, how does it feel now that NFTs have finally kind of blown up in the last, you know, year or two? That has to be pretty nice to get some recognition now.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly validating. I mean, it was. I mean, it was validating at the time, just knowing how many people were interested in Rare Pepes when we were doing it. I mean, it was. I mean, I like to say like the reason I even built all these tools was because I needed something that managed my own collection. So it's yeah, it certainly is yeah, validating certainly. But we knew we were on to something. I think Mike kind of was the catalyst there. Because it was just funny prior to that, like on Counterparty, you had Spells of Genesis and Forces of Will and these kind of like companies that were creating these collectibles, and nobody thought to just make their own.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly people. I even remember people asking the Spells of Genesis guys, like, "Hey, could we create some cards?" And then being like, "No, we have like our own artist, and we're gonna do it." And it really just it took another year and a half for Mike to just come out and say, like, "Here's a card that I created, and I put it up for sale on the decks." And like having that built-in exchange within counterparty is really what helped Rare Pepes flourish, and kind of me having built Rare Pepe wallet to interact with the DEX or decentralized exchange in a like relatively painless way, just really helped people like trade their Pepes and buy and sell Pepes. And yeah, it was just a lot of like people building on experiments of other people, and it just really with Rare Pepes, it kind of just all came together.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you put it that way, that, you know, it took so long for someone to get the idea to just do their own. But like you said, the fact that Repes isn't controlled by a central entity is, you know, I think one of the things that makes it so, I mean, it still feels really fresh and fun, you know?
Yeah, and I think the fact that it wasn't planned, it
Mhm.
was like the most organic thing possible. I mean, Mike, I don't think Mike had any idea what he was starting when he like dropped the Nakamoto card in the counterparty Telegram chat. Um, it just turned into this whole big project, like where it just started as Mike wanted to create Rare Pepe cards. So yeah, I think it just I think we was the right people at the right time to really see this like birth of crypto art.
Yeah, and you've continued collecting throughout the years too, right?
I have, yeah. I mean, I have more unique Pepes now than I ever have. I mean, I was collecting all through the run up of the bull market, and now that we're entering a bear market, now I'm looking for deals on ones and trying to get them. So yeah, no, I love collecting Rare Pepes. I mean, that's what keeps me interested. If I didn't have that collector mindset and I wasn't into collecting, I certainly wouldn't still be around. I mean, it's really what drives me, and I build things I want to use. So um and I now like surrounded with a community of people that have similar interests as me as far as like collecting these things, and so it's fun to build stuff, and everybody is has as much fun using it and playing around with it as I do building it. So yeah, no, I think it's been a lot of fun, and it's been great to see how it's evolved.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun collecting rare Pepes too. Pepe.WTF has been really made it a lot easier too to find deals and sort through and just as an example of just as a collector, you can get cards that aren't super expensive but are really cool. As an example of something that popped up recently, there was like ECC Pepe, which until like last week, I think there was only like 11 holders or something. And the original wallet holder just decided to open up a dispenser, and for $30 you can get one of these cards. It's 3,000 supply, I think, or 2,000, something like that. But still, to be able to get a card that's in really low circulation for $30 I thought was pretty fun. So, and it's a pretty cool meme too. If you remember that really famous botched restoration of the image of Jesus that like went viral several years ago. So
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I know exactly the one you're talking about now.
yeah. So I don't know, it's fun seeing that stuff pop up. But yeah, I mean, you have like, if you're like obsessed with Pepe's, you'll see this stuff, opportunities come on, and I don't know. It's been maybe taken up too much of my time, but I've had fun with it.
Yeah, it's certainly addicting.
Yeah, I know, right?
I try to limit my Telegram time as much as I can, because you can really get absorbed into it, especially now there's all these different collections to collect. I mean, I started collecting Wojaks.
Yeah.
The Wojak Way is like one of my I like love those ones. And so
I
yeah,
don't
it's
own any, but I think those are great too. It's on my to-do list. Whenever I have some more cash, I'd love to pick up some of those because there's some great ones in there. I agree.
yeah, and I think you made a good point when you said like you could just pick this one up for like $30. I mean, some people will put stuff on dispensers for $10, $15, and with Bitcoin fees being relatively low, I mean, it's you kind of get this entrance point into NFTs for the cost of a Ethereum transaction fee.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely it's very accessible. So it'll be nice once I have time and I'm able to build out the wallet ecosystem more, so that like really all you need is a little bit of Bitcoin, and you can start collecting. And I tried to make like Rare Pepe wallet as painless as possible to use. But yeah, no, I think it's going to be I think it'll be a lot of fun. I think I'm looking forward to the next few months and rolling out some new kind of features in the wallet to just like get more people involved.
And just for clarification, so for Rare Pepe wallet, are you just gonna like kind of code freeze that and just leave that as is? Or are you gonna make any improvements to that in the future? Or are you just gonna focus entirely on Freeport?
I mean, I'm going to focus on Freeport. I mean, they share a lot of the same code base.
Mhm.
Um, and I certainly want to backport any major upgrades into Rare Pepe wallet. But yeah, I think probably we'll focus on Freeport. But I mean, you can I kind of like leaving Rare Pepe wallet as like this its own kind of like frozen in time like thing. Although obviously, like I want it to work. So
Yeah.
I will keep it working for sure.
Okay. Yeah. One thing that's been really I'm assuming that has helped counterparty, survive and thrive is how few changes they've made in Bitcoin over the last, gosh, it's been like 7 years. I mean, there's very few changes that that you guys would have had to take into account, right?
Yeah, and like remember too with Bitcoin is um you tend to not ever want a hard fork, right? So
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
you can continually it's always backwards compatible. So that certainly helps counterparty or anything like counterparty that's built on top of it. Um I mean, we have had to like do some upgrades with like when SegWit came out, that was during think that was like 2016 or
Mhm.
2017, probably 2017. So yeah, I mean, there's been some updates to keep up with, but yeah,
But
um, the nice thing about, yeah, building on Bitcoin is you get that backwards compatibility. So there's never a huge rush like, oh my God, this isn't going to work anymore. It's no, we gotta update it a little bit. Like Rare Pepe wallet, for example, Rare Pepe wallet can't send to Beck32 addresses right now.
okay.
And it's just because the library I use was kind of built before Beck32 addresses were a thing. So it was never designed for that. So but it doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means if you want to use those type of addresses, you have to just load up a different wallet or something. So but yeah, I mean the idea is to kind of get all the wallets kind of using the latest standards, whether there's a lot of upgrades to it or not. I mean, we'll see, but yeah, the focus is really going to be on Freeport and building that out.
Sure. And just to clarify, so counterparty doesn't run like port running on top of the SegWit, does it?
What do you mean?
Like the when they change the format to SegWit, it does counterparty run on, like, is it compatible with that format?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I
Okay.
mean,
Okay.
you can hold Pepe's in a SegWit. I mean, a Beck32 address is a SegWit address. It's like a
Okay.
native SegWit address. So yeah, I mean, SegWit is just a different kind of method of signing a
Signing the
Bitcoin
trans.
transaction.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's certainly there. It's compatible with the
Okay.
latest standards there.
The reason I ask is I think I tried that once with Free Wallet. I don't think it's, and that sounds like that's just a limitation of that wallet, But I guess my quick question in terms of just the underlying network is, um, from what I understand, it looks like the entire Pepe community and counterparty community stayed with Bitcoin Core throughout the fork, because I tried looking up a while ago, and it looks like I found maybe a couple websites, but it doesn't look like anyone tried to like make a serious effort to maintain or revive counterparty on the what's now Bitcoin Cash, right?
I mean, there was certainly it was a point of contention at the time when everything was going on. But yeah, I mean, because most of us consider ourselves Bitcoiners, and like Bitcoin stayed what it was, and Bitcoin Cash forked off of Bitcoin, so it
Yeah.
didn't really make any sense that counterparty would follow to a different chain. But that being said, I mean, Bitcoin Cash has anything that happened on counterparty up to the split is part of the Bitcoin Cash blockchain too. So I mean, there's forks of all the Pepes that were that were there at the time. If someone wanted to create um, a fork of counterparty to interpret all that information, you certainly could. But that's kind of like the interesting thing about blockchains in general, right? I mean, it's like
Mhm.
there's a lot of it depends on, it's not just this technical consensus, but also social consensus as to what even is Bitcoin, right? So
Yeah, totally.
um, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
because
it's kind of like
I
a
mean,
more of a meta issue.
yeah, exactly. Because like you were saying, the vast majority of the community, both in Pepe's and in Bitcoin, chose to go uh, behind Bitcoin Core. So, you know, uh, exactly. So it's, like you said, technically feasible, but if it doesn't have the backing of the community, it's more of a novelty, I guess, right?
Sure, but yeah, who knows in the future? I mean, and like anything like Doge Party was revived,
Mhm.
and that sat dormant for at least like 4 or 5 years, um, and then it was revived. So I mean, there's no reason you couldn't have a counterparty on Bitcoin Cash that is revived and like follows the original counterparty up until the chain split, and have all those assets exist the Bitcoin Cash blockchain. I mean, you certainly could do it, and maybe someone will in the future. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind owning some of those old Bitcoin Cash versions of the cards for fun. But I think part of it is, like you said, it's a level of effort, and I know the Bitcoin Cash community, they've got their own, like, a newer token standard now. I mean, it's, a lot of that goes back to, someone being interested enough to actually, you know, stand all that stuff up. But like you said, yeah, it may happen in the future. Said, and I think it'd be kind of fun to own a Bitcoin Cash Nakamoto. So just for the novelty.
Well,
Um,
my AirPods are starting to die, just so you know.
okay.
So
Okay. Yeah.
just to
Well,
give you a heads up.
yeah, sure. I mean, I think we've covered most of the main points I wanted to touch on. Is there anything else you wanted to speak to, or is there anything else on your mind?
No, I think we covered a lot of stuff. I mean, I'd say in the context of when we're recording this and it being, it's kind of like um dive into the next bear market and the next market cycle. I think it's just important to remember that this isn't Rare Pepe's first market cycle. I mean, Counterparty was born in a bear market, kind of the beginning of a bear market in 2014, and then Rare Pepes were born to kind of the end of that bear market. So, and then we had the run up in 2017, and then we sat in a bear market for 3 years until the latest run up in late 2020, early 2021. So I don't foresee Rare Pepes going anywhere. So yeah, it's I know it's hard to watch prices going down and stuff like that, but yeah, I'm always comforted knowing I still have my Rare Pepe collection.
Yeah, for sure. I feel the same way. I'm not, even with the market going down, I'm not really concerned. I'm actually a little bit excited that I might be able to get some cards that I wouldn't otherwise be able to in the next year or two. So
Exactly, it's a buyer's market now.
yeah. So well, yeah, well, cool. Well, I'm gonna I think that's a good stopping point. So I really appreciate you joining me today. And it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no problem.